Do you enjoy listening to multiplayer podcast content? Do you want to help support the show so we can continue to independently deliver 2 shows each week? Do you also want access to our exclusive Discord server so you can come game with us and make suggestions for future shows? Well, what are you waiting for? Head on over to multiplayersquad.com or click on the link in the podcast description to come join us on Patreon. We appreciate all of you for listening and subscribing. Now let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Multiplayer Gaming Podcast. We are a family-friendly podcast of 3 dads, and each week we release an episode that covers the world of gaming. And today we are without our regular host Todd, and my name is Paul, and today we are very excited to have a bonus round episode for you all. We are going to be going over the top 2021 games that we are most excited for. And let me just say, I'm so excited.
And I'm so excited.
I'm so scared that New World's going to be terrible.
Oh.
And I'm joined today by my co-host, Josh. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. You know what's funny is I'm just going to get right to it. New World is one of the games that is on my list. And I was going to preface it with, I really have no idea if this is going to be like Crucible or not.
Ooh.
But for now, but we can get into that in a little bit. But
yeah, it's definitely one of those games. Lots of potential for greatness and lots of potential to go the way of Crucible. So time will tell. And, we just wanted to let you guys know that we appreciate you listening to us today. If you haven't subscribed, we would love for you guys to do that. We would also love the support of you guys leaving a review for us on your podcasting app. So we would love if you could go rate us 5 stars and write and leave a review. We are actually going to start reading reviews again here for the show. So if you'd like to hear a shout out, go ahead and do that as soon as you can. And also, if you want to join us on Patreon, you can find us at multiplayersquad.com. On there, you can get access to our exclusive Discord server. You can come game with me and Josh and Todd, and we would love to have you join us over there. All right, so getting here into the episode today, Josh, as you were looking at the games set for release in 2021, did you have any initial impressions? Like, what do you think about this year in gaming? Are you overall excited? Are you overall nervous?
I'm kind of nervous, man. Like, there's some games that I'm excited for, but like when you look at the year as a whole, I think people just aren't really confident in releasing games anymore after what happened to Cyberpunk. So, I mean, there's definitely some really big name games that are set to release in 2021. Hopefully they'll be ready, but there's a lot of games that it's like a good example is I'm looking through the list and there's a game called No More Heroes 3. Like, okay, I don't know what that game is.
I've never heard of No More Heroes.
I haven't either. And it's like, I'm not like, wait, why is there 3 of them? And then I'm not excited about that, but it's on like the, hey, 50 games coming out in 2021 list. And then it's like, I don't know, man. Like, there's some big name ones out there, but there's a lot of games I have not heard of. Now, obviously, right now, any list that's online that's going to say, hey, here's 50 games that are coming out in 2021 is by no means comprehensive. Like there's early access games that are going to come out. There's games that are going to just straight up release without a lot of fanfare that might be phenomenal, like Hades was in 2020. So, I mean, yes, we're not going to be able to cover everything, and I'm sure there's going to be some stuff that we don't talk about tonight that's, is gaining hype or something like that. So,
yeah, and I feel like every year there's always hidden gems that you don't really know about, kind of like Apex Legends kind of hit in the middle of just no news whatsoever, and it became this huge sensation. Hades got tons of love. And I feel like when you cover the most anticipated games like this, a lot of them are probably just more likely to let you down just by nature of the fact that they're a little bit more anticipated. And for this list, I don't know how you felt, but I went with more of my personal excitement. So it's not so much the biggest games coming out in 2021. I feel like those lists, there's a million of them online. If that's what you want to find, then that's pretty easy. I thought I would make it a little bit more personal with what I'm looking forward to. And some of them are bigger games, some of them are a little bit smaller, but I'm pretty excited to jump in. So do you want to go ahead and lead off with the first one, Josh? What are you excited for?
All right. So I got to tell a little story here too, man. I feel like the developers are just messing with me now, man. Like
with all the pushbacks?
With all the
pushbacks. What you're getting at?
I just in our Discord, I just posted in our Discord today. I'm like, choo-choo, time to get this hype train rolling. Like, Outriders is coming up in a month. Like, let's get excited about this. I'm like, I throw it out on social media. I'm like, woo, like, yeah, Outriders coming up, man. February 2nd. Like, we're super pumped about this. And I'm not joking. Paul, 5 minutes. Check the timestamp. 5 minutes after I posted about Outriders on social media, I get a notification. I go online, I check IGN because it's one of my favorite like gaming websites.
Sure.
And the top story is Outriders delayed again.
Pushed back to April 1st. No April Fool's Day. Legitimately pushed back 2 months.
If you could have seen me just fall on the floor on my knees, just why? like, come on, man.
At some point, we're just going to have to get used to this, right? Like all the games that have been pushed back, whether it's from COVID or just regular delay issues. Yeah, this one fell prey to it. So this one is now coming out on April 1st. I think this is probably the game you and I are the most excited for.
I am. And what's funny is, to their credit, this game has flown under the radar. Like, for as AAA title as this game looks, and as I've watched all of the character breakdown videos, the story progression videos, like there's a lot that they have released on what this game is and the different facets of it, and like how, because it's like a co-op campaign, but then after you beat the campaign, you kind of go into like these raids, even though they don't call them raids, and kind of end game content and stuff like that. And I mean, they've gone into huge breakdowns on those. So there is legit probably an hour or so worth of video that you can watch. And I've watched all of it, man. And this game looks great. Like, the art style is super cool. The combat looks great. The co-op teamwork part of it looks great. I mean, the monsters, it looks top notch from top to bottom.
I could not agree with you more. And I, similarly to your story, Josh, I went to YouTube and watched a video, everything we know about Outriders up to this point, and the guy had released it, and then he posted about an hour later, well, this didn't age well, now releases on April 1st. So he did almost the same thing you did, except his was a full-blown YouTube video. But Outriders, I think one of the very cool things about it is the fact that you had mentioned it's co-op, so it is 3-person squads, which is very neat, and there are... how many different characters? There's 4 different characters that you can choose from, right?
Yeah, and they all look vastly different, too, which is really cool.
Yeah, I jotted down the names of them, actually. So for those of you who don't really know very much about Outriders, I think what looks so appealing about it is the fact that it's very fast, action-paced, looter-shooter, and you have to play very aggressively. So in all the videos I've seen, the people who have had their hands on it, they talk about how you have to kill in order to heal yourself. You're constantly using abilities. It's very aggressive gameplay. And I think that's right up our alley. That's the kind of style we like to play gaming.
Oh, that's my style, whether you guys like it or not. that's you know me, man. Charge into the fray and guns a blazing.
Oh yeah. So the 4 classes that you can choose from, not to get too bogged down in the details, but I thought this was kind of neat just because of how they work together and how they are quite a bit different. So you have, for example, the Pyromancer, which obviously uses fire. They can play as a tank. They can put fire on the ground that makes enemies take damage. There is a Devastator, which uses rock armor. You can summon spikes out of the ground. And I thought it was really cool. Have you seen the footage where you can stop bullets, like Neo from The Matrix, and then shoot all the bullets back at them?
Yeah, there's
which is very cool.
The Trickster, right? Isn't that one of them? I think that might be the one that I'm leaning towards. to be honest with you.
Sounds more melee combat.
Yeah, melee and time manipulation. Yeah, like they can blink like in time and summon weapon like swords and stuff like that or something like that.
And then the last class is the one that we all know I'm going to play because it's the Technomancer, which is the healer. So I'm sure that'll end up being me. I always end up playing healer in these games.
I actually watched a long video on the Technomancer, and what's neat about them is you can summon like sentry turrets and Gatling guns and stuff. So I don't think it's the dedicated healer class, because from what I remember watching is that each class has its own heal ability. So you're kind of responsible for yourself, in the group kind of thing. So I'm not sure. I guess maybe the Technomancer can spec healing a little bit more.
Yeah, they're the only class that can heal other characters. Everyone else can only heal themselves. Yeah, which is pretty neat. But I gotta say, I think this game looks incredible. The elemental powers are gorgeous. This game is colorful. You know how much I love games that please the eye. This game does not just look great. It's colorful. The worlds look really neat. And they claim it's a 40-hour campaign. I'm a little dubious of that. I feel like those numbers always get exaggerated. But if this actually provides even a 20, 25-hour 3-person co-op campaign before you even get into online matchmaking PvP stuff, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am too. I like I said, if you're just trust us, you guys are listening to this podcast for a reason. Do yourself a favor, just Google some Outriders gameplay. There's a ton of stuff on their website. There's a ton of stuff on YouTube about it. I mean, it's Mass Effect meets Diablo. If that's not enough to get you excited, I don't know what is. And the beauty, the other thing that I absolutely am super stoked for on this is that it's full crossplay. Yep. I mean, we're big PC gamers, but we have a lot of friends that are console gamers. A lot of people in our Discord are console gamers, and it's like the ability to play with anybody. And it's Stadia crossplay even, which is super cool. Yeah. I mean, it seems like they have done this game right from top to bottom. I mean, is there a chance it sucks? Like, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess, but I just don't see it happening, man. So it's probably my most looked forward to game of 2021, to be honest. And I love the fact that, freaking recent delay aside, that it comes out.
Pushback is fine, right? Yes. As long as the game's finished.
Exactly.
Just please don't release another Cyberpunk. Man, we'll be very happy.
I think people are going to be scared at this point. So if they delayed it, it's fine. April is still not that far away. But yeah, that's the one that I'm probably most excited about.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about Outriders before moving on is that you can fully swap out your skill trees and mods on weapons. So the game's highly adaptable. You can change in between encounters and between missions and fully customize your guy out. I even saw a video where a guy put a mod to make a shotgun full auto. So I thought that was the funniest thing in the world. So I love when games let you just goof off and do some of that stuff.
I'm the same way, because I get that skill paralysis where I don't spend skill points otherwise if I don't think that I can respec when I want. So yeah, they've done everything right so far from what I've seen.
Yeah. All right. Well, the first one that I have here on my list, being someone who just recently got a PS5, I have on my list Destruction All-Stars. Now, have you watched any footage of this game, Josh? Do you know much about it?
I did not until you had posted earlier about Destruction All-Star, and I was like, Destruction All-Stars? Like, what is this? Like a Smash Bros thing or something? Like, and then as I'm Googling it, I see vehicle and like walking combat, or I forget how they phrased it. It's like vehicle and running around and I went vehicle combat. I was like, is this Twisted Metal? Like, is this it? Is this what I've been waiting for? This game looks crazy, man. I knew nothing about it until today.
Well, it's funny because when I first heard about it, it was my son James who was like, Dad, there's this game coming out. I don't remember what it's called, but you're like in cars fighting, but then you jump out of your car and you're like fighting on foot. And have you seen this? And I said, no. And so I started looking into it, and I get some serious, almost like Mario Kart 64 type vibes. Like, I think about playing in the living room with a bunch of friends playing battle mode in Mario 64. And that's kind of what this feels like. It's just bigger, better, newer. You play in these big matches of 16 people, and you are in like a destruction derby where there are cars that have weapons, and depending on which car you pick, you have different abilities, and different characters have different abilities. And there are booby traps and all kinds of things littered on the map. And basically you just fight to the finish. There's very limited gameplay released on it, but it looks like a blast. And if you are a PS Plus member, then you'll get it 2 months for free. So you can give it a shot before you actually pay, because this one's pricey. This is at the new rate. It's going to be $69.99.
Ooh, I forgot they're doing that. Oh man.
Yeah. Games are pricey now on console.
I mean, if anything, it's going to force people or cause people to wait for reviews. You know, at that, you release a $70 game, it better be a good game. You know, because the days of people pre-ordering stuff at $70, I think is going to be a lot more limited. I think this game looks super fun. The art style is kind of neat. It reminds me of almost like a roller derby, like neon arena or something. But the gameplay that I saw was like, you know, you have your various characters. I don't know if they have different abilities, like that there is character type, you know, stuff going on there. But they made it a point of like summoning these different cars and hopping in them and then like driving through and wrecking other cars in the arena. And then, like you mentioned, if your car gets wrecked, you jump out on foot and then you can like wall run around the arena and stuff too. So it's like you're not out of it just because your car gets blown up. You can then like carjack other people and steal their car. Like, I don't know how the gameplay is going to work on this stuff, but it looked like chaos, which is right up my alley. I mean, I've been just so hungry for a good vehicular combat game. So this is one I'm definitely interested in as well. You know, at that point when it releases, might have to come over to your house and check it out for sure.
Yeah, definitely. The characters definitely have different abilities and build outs. They only show a couple, but like one character can temporarily make their car go invisible. So then you can kind of like line yourself up and try to ambush another car. One of the other characters, if you get knocked out of your car, you can jump on top of another and pull them out of their car and you take theirs over. So if they nail the gameplay, I could see it being a ton of fun, where it's almost like a battle royale mixed with Rocket League in a weird way. It's almost like what it is. But that one, I feel like it's got a lot of potential. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and this is what I love, is like, I had no idea this game existed until today. like this is why I love this show, man, because I didn't know about this.
All right, what's the next one on your list?
All right, I do have some big name ones on my list, but I'm going to wait a little bit, because there's a game, we briefly touched on this. It's called Chorus. And if you remember, this was the game that the gameplay trailer, the game looks super good. The graphics look great, but all I could remember was do a barrel roll, because
the barrel rolls. Yes.
The gameplay footage. I wish I should have, because I watched it again today. I should have counted, but I'm pretty sure in like the 2-minute video, there's at least 60 barrel rolls occurring. Like maybe that's how you like charge your ship. Like, I don't know.
It was the one and only ability that you can show while flying. If you're just watching a spaceship go forward out in space, there's not a whole lot to see. So they like to toss in some of those extra barrel rolls.
Yeah. So this is a space combat game. It is not, from what I can tell, it does not look like it's multiplayer. So it's not in the vein of like Star Wars Squadrons, but it's, you know, the premise is you have this sentient ship. It's like a story-based space shooter, which I think sounds kind of cool. Super fast gameplay, you know, great graphics. I love any kind of space combat. It's just one of those genres I really get into. You know, like I said, look up the trailer. It's one of those things that's kind of hard to talk about, and I can't really, you know, talk about a space combat sim very much, other than picking on their barrel roll, you know, fetish that they have going on there.
Right.
But it looks really cool. It looks like it's done well. You know, we're waiting on more news about the game because there's not a ton out there. But yeah, that's right up my alley. I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, and that one does not have a release date yet, but it is going to be coming out on all consoles except for Switch and PC. So I think that'll be an interesting one to keep tabs on. I feel like Squadrons was fun, but it didn't last terribly long. I feel like a one-player game like Chorus that has a little bit more of a story and more exploration type elements might be a lot of fun. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
It's funny you mentioned that, man, because I was thinking, and it's like Squadrons is great, but at the same time, there's times where like the multiplayer aspect of it is almost a hindrance. Do you know what I mean? Like in the sense, like sometimes I want to just fly around, play a story-based game, and I like space. I like space movies. I like space games. Like that's just a cool thing for me. So to have a single player, you know, if the story is really cool and the gameplay is you flying around and, you know, fighting these aliens and then discovering stuff and getting power-ups and, you know, depending on the progression that they do in the game, it could be phenomenal. But yeah, that's kind of neat that you mentioned Squadrons, because I was kind of like, I don't want to like group this in with Squadrons because it really looks different, man.
It does. Yeah. And Squadrons is great in what it does. And Squadrons has the one player mode, but I found that to be rather underwhelming.
Yeah.
So we'll keep our eye on Chorus. That's for sure. All right. The next one that I have on my list is a game that I was very surprised to see on the list for 2021. And it is Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance.
I'm about to nerd out, Paul. I'm nerd alert coming from me, man.
I know, right? A little bit of me too. Not as much, because I know where you're going with this, but this is going to be coming out on PC only. And this is the spiritual successor to one of my favorite games, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 1 and 2. Which I absolutely loved. Those were kind of like old school co-op action RPGs, a little hack and slash, but you get to play multiplayer. And this is going to be a PC 4-player co-op story game. And you have a little bit of history after you watched the trailer for this, right?
I did. So this is another game I did not know was coming out. And then anytime I see Dungeons and Dragons, I'm like, ooh, I love these kind of games. And then I was like, Dark Alliance, like, why does that sound like vaguely familiar to me? Because I had forgotten about the ones that came out before. Mm-hmm. And then so I'm like, all right, well, let me look into this. And the first thing I see is this is a game that features the hero Drizzt Do'Urden. And then I instantly just was like, oh, like I posted it. I even posted in our chat. I was like, what? So I'm a huge fantasy sci-fi nerd. I have read every Drizzt Do'Urden book that was ever written by R.A. Salvatore. I'm watching this video. I'm like, that's Drizzt. That's Catti-brie. That's, Bruenor Battlehammer. That's Wulfgar. Like, I'm picking all these people out. There's even a little spot where it's like you can see Regis the halfling in one of them, like the little snippets of the trailer. And my inner nerd just like oozed out. And the trailer, I'm gonna be honest, the trailer for this game, they tried to like a neat art style.
Dude, the trailer is bananas.
It's banana.
How would you describe it?
I mean, goofy, like weird,
it's
man.
It's like GoPro angles on their swords and like straight like in their face.
Yes.
So you don't really see anything. And it's like, this is D&D. Like, why are we getting these weird GoPro action shots? The teaser trailer is being downvoted into oblivion. I don't know if you noticed that. It has a lot of downvotes. So I feel like the teaser trailer doesn't show what this game is actually going to be, which is an action co-op RPG. So I can't wait for this one, but the trailer will not sell you on this game if you don't know anything about the history of Dark Alliance.
Yeah, I'm already sold because I love the characters. I love the books that they're based on. I mean, this game might be hot garbage, and I'm going to at least try it out just to say, hey, because there's not that many games out there that follow, these characters specifically. Neverwinter Nights, but I don't. Yeah, man, it's been a long time since I've played those games. I don't think Drizzt and those were in those games, man. So the trailer does look kind of janky, but I'm excited nonetheless because, like you said, 4-player co-op action adventure. It's not going to be hack and slash. I don't want to quantify it as that, but action adventure co-op game. That alone is great for me.
Let me read you a quote from the developer, and this, I think, is such a cool quote. It combines the pulse-pounding action of a hack-and-slash dungeon crawler with the progression and loot system of a role-playing game, all from a third-person perspective. In theory, it should feel much faster than a Dragon Age game. So imagine everything Dragon Age has to offer, but quicker combat. So like Dragon Age 2 famously has quicker combat, but it did not feel like a Dragon Age game. So I almost feel like this is almost like trying to redo Dragon Age 2, but do it the right way. And that is incredibly up my alley. I could not be more excited to play this.
Oh, me too. I mean, give us the ability to work together, combos, like you said, finding weapons.
Yeah, why is this game so under the radar? Like you and I had not heard about it.
I don't know. It worries me a little bit, to be honest, that it's like it is that far under the radar, because it's like maybe it's not really that good. Or maybe the trailer they put out just was like, hey, we're just trying to get people's appetites going. And then the trailer got, like you said, downvoted into oblivion. And so they kind of went, we're not doing that anymore. We'll just wait till we can release the game.
I guess. To be fair, it's like a cinematic trailer, so it doesn't show any actual gameplay. It's just an interesting pick from a trailer perspective.
And what's weird is this is another game that was supposed to release in 2020, and then now it just says 2021. But they haven't even said when in 2021. It's just, I had a hard time finding the actual release date. So, I mean, good for them. If it's not ready, it's not ready. But the only thing I'm going to say about this is you're touching and you're making a game out of some very beloved characters. And I said this in our chat too. I said they better get it right, or there's going to be a lot of really upset people over what they're doing to these characters.
Well, the one thing that should make you really happy is that they talked about how the guy who wrote the books was a consultant for the game and gave it his blessing.
Well,
so the fact that you are drawing from rich book lore that has already been written, if you can draw from that for a video game, I feel like you're just setting yourself up for more success. So even though there isn't a whole lot of buzz about it yet, I wouldn't be surprised if there starts being a little bit more as time goes on. So I'm excited. It's being developed by Wizards of the Coast. They have done a ton of card games and RPG games, so they have a lot of experience in this field. And I definitely will be watching over this game as we see more footage. So this one's like a tentative buy. I feel like it's still early. The stock level is low. Now might be the time to pick up some of that stock. It's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, I got real excited. when I realized what it was.
Yeah, you started typing back with all caps in Discord. So I was like, oh, I think I struck a chord here with Josh. I think he's excited. All right. So what's the next one on your list?
Okay. So we touched on this one at the very beginning of the show. New World by Amazon. Amazon, your video game development has really sucked so far.
Not a good track record.
It's like, I just, what was it? Crucible got canceled. What was the other game Amazon had? They canceled that one too.
Did they cancel a second? I don't even remember.
There was a second game. I can't remember. New World the betas came out and people were like, hey, I mean, there's some really good stuff to this, but it's still pretty wonky and I'm not sure this game is ready. And to Amazon's credit, they pulled it back. They said, hey, we want to release like an actual really good game. The reason this game gets me excited is I'm dying for an MMO to play. Like, honestly, maybe that genre is just dead. We've touched on that in previous shows too. Maybe people just don't have the time for MMOs anymore. Like, that makes me sad. I kind of can understand that as we get older and kids and work and all that at the same time. But man, I just have a special place in my heart for MMOs. And this is the only MMO that's going to release anytime soon. And so I'm hopeful for it. There's a ton of PvP associated with this game and like large scale battles and things like that. So there's a lot that to me looks very interesting, but if they can't nail the mechanics of the game, if they can't make combat fun, if the characters seem like they're walking at 10 frames a second and they're all janky and stuttery and stuff, it's gonna fall flat. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have those the basics down.
Yeah.
But if they can use this time to tweak it and improve that stuff, then there's been a lot of very good things said about parts of the game.
Yeah, and they did make a couple of decisions that I think are going in the right direction. Initially, they had said this game was going to have a monthly subscription to play. And in some ways, I actually heard some people that they actually thought that was a good thing because they thought maybe it would weed out some of the younger crowds, and they thought maybe it would just pull in like a more mature audience who can afford the higher price. But I think at the same time, most people just do not like that model anymore. You don't want to have to pay month after month, especially when there's so many games out there that are free. It's really hard to compete against games like Warzone or Apex or, games like that. So I like that they went to just a flat price to pay in the beginning. And maybe in some ways this will scratch a little bit of our Rust itch, where you get to level up in the world. And the world is persistent, right?
Yeah, it's a full-fledged MMO. Persistent world. I think there's castles or towns that you can build up with people, and then other people can come try to take them over. But if they don't, then they persist and stuff like that too.
Yeah, so this one famously has been in development for years and years, lots of pushbacks, and fully changing large parts of the game. And you can kind of spin that positively or negatively. I think on the positive side, maybe they have learned from the failures of Crucible and whatever other game we can't even remember. Yeah. Maybe they learned from their mistakes and thought, we've sunk so much money into this, let's slow down and take our time. I mean, it's Amazon. They have all the money in the world. So I don't think for them the money is so much an issue. Hopefully they just have the right people in charge of the right jobs. And I will definitely check this one out, but I feel like this one has about a 33% chance of being good. But if it is good, it's going to be great.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'll be honest, I'm not super hopeful that it's going to be the MMO that I want it to be.
Right.
But at the same time, if I'm sure it'll be $60. I'm sure I'll get $60 worth out of this game. If nothing else, I'll get 40 hours of playtime out of it before I go, this game kind of sucks. Because it takes that long sometimes on an MMO to go, the end game's not really there, and the combat's kind of dumbed down, and, that kind of stuff. But I don't know, man. They don't have a good track record.
They sure. Don't. They're batting 0 right now, so We'll see. Yeah, it's one of those things also where I'm curious to see where they go as far as PvP and endgame content. Because if your leveling is really poor, people will quit. If you level and then there's nothing to do, like in Anthem, people will quit. So it's very hard to create an MMO because you have to nail both ends of that. It's almost like making 2 different games, and it's very easy to strike out on one. So I think that's maybe what has me a little nervous.
Yeah.
All right, so now that we finished up New World, the next one I have on my list is a game that I think you're looking forward to as well. It's a little game called Back 4 Blood.
Back 4 Blood. AKA 2021's Left 4 Dead.
Yes, I don't understand why it's not just called Left 4 Dead 3, because it's made by the same people. It is 4-person co-op survival against zombies. There are specialized units that you have to
the same developer.
Go protect. Yeah, it's all the same.
Right.
This game is no different. I don't know why they're trying to reset it as a new series. It is very much Left 4 Dead 3. If you watch the trailer, they even throw out voice lines that feel like they're straight out of Left 4 Dead. It could not be more similar, but that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. And I mean, one of my main complaints, we covered Left 4 Dead in an episode, and one of my main complaints with Left 4 Dead 2 was that it just feels dated at this point.
So old.
Like the gameplay is fine. Like I like we just covered Vermintide 2, which is a ripoff of that formula. I like Vermintide 2 a lot. Like it's an updated version of that. I'd rather play Vermintide over Left 4 Dead. Like, I mean, it's one of those things where, sometimes shiny graphics help, and I like melee combat, so that helps too. But with Back 4 Blood, it looks like they're not really rocking the boat with that formula, which is probably a good thing, to be honest, because you mess with that formula too much, it may not work, and it is a tested formula at this point. But put some shiny graphics on it, put some better gunplay, update the gunplay on the game, and maybe some more modern mechanics and things like that.
Let us use ADS.
Yes. Oh man, let us use ADS. Oh my goodness. Which I'm pretty sure I saw in the trailers too. But then you have something that follows that tried and true formula, has a shiny coat of paint, is modernized, and I can get behind that 100%.
Yeah, and these games are intrinsically not terribly expensive. And as long as you just make the gameplay enjoyable, then people will buy it. And it's coming from a well-established developer, so I'm excited to see what they do with this one. The Wikipedia page kind of pokes fun at how similar it is to Left 4 Dead. This is what Wikipedia has to say about it. Though inspired by their own Left 4 Dead games, Back 4 Blood will be a wholly original intellectual property, though it will still see players working cooperatively to fight through a zombie apocalypse. So, is it a wholly original property? I don't know about that. But They did say it's going to have a PvP mode as well, so that'll also include some fun. And I assume the workshop will be open and available where people are free to get creative as well.
Yeah, they talked about the game director, where the game adapts on the fly to your play styles and skill levels and stuff too. I was watching a fairly in-depth video on it, and part of it, what they were really touting was this game director. It's like an AI built into the game, basically,
right? Where
it'll adjust the game kind of how you play and stuff. And that sounds neat in theory. If it works, then that's going to lend itself to a lot of replayability and not getting stale. At the same time, so I like that formula a lot. I don't like Left 4 Dead as much, just because it really feels dated to me, and there's a lot of games I'd rather play because of that. But if you can give me a modernized one, I love co-op gameplay, man. It's so much fun. So yeah. Give me that with like I said, with new mechanics and recent gameplay graphics. I'm all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the idea of using the AI director is in the older Left 4 Dead games, but they've had such a long time to really perfect how that works. And that really is one of the beauties of the game, because if you are just blazing through, the game knows that, and they will adjust and throw out different enemies, different number of enemies. You're going to have to employ better strategy. So I love that the game adapts on the fly. Every run should be enjoyable. You're not supposed to have those runs where you get stomped or it's just a walk in the park. And so being able to jump in with other people, so even if you're at different skill levels, the game adjusts around all that. So you should always be able to play with everyone. And they have it in the trailer. You still hear the horde as they all start pouring in. And that's what this game's all about, right? Where you hear that horde coming, find a choke point, fight them off. It'll be great. I have no doubt. All right. And so that one releases on June 22nd. So we still got about 5 months until that one comes out, but I'm very excited for Back 4 Blood.
That's a game I feel like's not going to get pushed back.
Probably not. It's relatively minor in scope.
Right, that's what I mean. Like I don't feel it like it's a technical thing where they're like, we got to bump this one.
Yeah, it's not quite like Cyberpunk, where you're trying to design an entire city that just has so much to tackle and there's so much opportunity for everything to go wrong. These are people that have already done this in the past. Right. They're just going to do it better and new and modern, and I'm sure they'll nail it. I would say out of all the games we've talked about, this is the one I'm most sure will be worth the money, because it'll probably be $20 or $30, I'm assuming, and it'll be fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. All right. So I got to get into a couple big name games here, because they're big name games for a reason. And one of them, I don't know. See, I might be on an island on this, because I don't know if you are into I know you've been into some of the ones in the past, but basically Battlefield 2021, that's all they're calling it. Just Battlefield. It's Battlefield 6. I guess if you wanted to
number it.
Right.
The numbering's always been a little goofy in that series, because you had Vietnam, and the first one was called 1942, and
yeah, but then the recent one, I guess 5, but then they went Battlefield 1. like they jumped backwards for a while. Like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
what happened there?
Battlefield, Windows, Xbox, they got to figure these numbering systems out.
Yeah, I don't
PlayStation,
know.
you at least have to give PlayStation credit.
Right. Yeah, they know how to count.
So Battlefield 2021's got you interested, huh?
It does, because I've always been a Battlefield guy. Now, I did not play much Battlefield 5. I played some Battlefield 1. I've kind of been out of Battlefield for a little bit. I was mega into Battlefield 2. I mean, that's probably one of my most played games. That was like my heyday of like, I was super good at that game. I was the best helicopter pilot you'd done ever seen. You know, it was just one of those like, I want that feeling again. And you know, I like a lot of the Battlefield games. The more recent ones have felt a little too chaotic for me, or the time to kill. Like, I feel like I'm just dead more than I'm alive. And it's become more of a almost like a Call of Duty, where it's like, it's just about my kill death ratio,
Right.
versus me and my squad have managed to sway this map and we took over these 2 points and then we got out of there. Or, you know, it's more the squad based gameplay,
Right.
and working the map that to me is what makes those games, versus just, you know, hey, you have a high kill death ratio and that's what Call of Duty's for. So what's cool about this game is they have come out, and again, they have to hype their own game, but they have said that with the new consoles coming out, that the scale of this Battlefield game is going to be never before seen.
As far as map size or number of players?
I think both.
Maybe both.
Yeah, because I like the thing with Battlefield was the biggest map you could get was 64 players, so 32
Right.
versus 32, and that was a lot. I mean, you had a big old map, but it was kind of cool. There was always something going on, and I gotta wonder with the new next gen consoles, like, are we getting into like the hundreds of players at that point?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. You know, is it a persistent map where? Which Battlefield? I think it was Battlefield 5 that introduced like the destructible skyscrapers and stuff, where if people see forward like the foundation, then the whole skyscraper would come crumbling down and actually change the map.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I have a complicated history with Battlefield. I played so much Battlefield 1942, you wouldn't believe me. They released the demo early for Battlefield 1942, and all you could play was one map, and I think it was called Coral Sea. And I would play this with our friend, your brother-in-law, Andy. We would just play this, I would say, 4 hours a day, probably getting out of school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and we would just, you know, whatever year it came out, and we would just play it over and over, and we figured out the best way to troll other players, because basically it was 2 aircraft carriers, and they were just separated with in the ocean with an island in the middle. And you would spawn on the aircraft carrier, and then you would also spawn jets. Well, what Andy and I would do is we would just equip bazookas. We would fly, parachute down onto the enemy aircraft carrier, and we would just sit and hide. And as soon as a plane would spawn, I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 people could jump in it, and then just immediately blow it with the bazooka. And we would just do it over and over and over. And people hated us, but it was hysterical. And I really loved that one. I bought the next 1 or 2 Battlefields. I remember the last one I played was the first one where if you had the highest rank, you were actually like the commander, and you could see a map, and you would send out like to bomb certain areas. And I remember playing that one a lot, and that was the last one.
That might be Battlefield 2. I don't know, because I didn't get into Battlefield really heavily until Battlefield 2, but I do remember, like you said, you had the commander, and you could, if you had a good commander, they could legit sway like the battle. If the squads would listen to the commander and you had a good commander, it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I remember Battlefield doing a really good job of incorporating the squad element, and then you would have squad leaders, and the squad leaders could mark the map. And as long as you had teams communicate and work together, that's where the game shines. Because Call of Duty, let's be honest, it's not really a team game. If you just matchmake by yourself and you're not playing with buddies, it's just a technical test. Everything's one-on-one. But in Battlefield, it has the potential for the group play, and I think that's what it brings to the table.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I hope that's, something that they focus on. But I'm excited. I mean, like I said, I've kind of been out of the Battlefields for a little while. I'm hoping this gets me back in. I hope that it's full crossplay, that kind of stuff, especially since obviously they're touting the power of the consoles and stuff too. There's not been much information, although I think there's some news coming out in the next few weeks, if I remember right, about it. So we'll see if that changes things. But I really want that I want to recapture that Battlefield 2 feeling again.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have to talk me into Battlefield 2021. I'll just say that.
I'll test it out, and then if it's great, I'll be like, hey guys, we all need to get this. And then if it's really terrible, then I'll just be like, yeah, you guys owe me some money since I was the guinea pig.
I feel like inevitably we'll buy it because we'll want to cover it for the show. But yeah, that's one that I'm trying to lower my expectations. That way, maybe I'll just be pleasantly surprised. All right, so we're getting a little bit short on time here. So taking a look at the games I have left, I'm going to pick one that's a little bit goofy. Maybe this is one that's not on your radar, or maybe you're going to be surprised to hear me say it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say it. Lord of the Rings Gollum. Do you know anything about this game series? Or this game?
I do. I watched the trailer before today because I'd actually heard of this game. I love the Lord of the Rings, man. The movies are phenomenal. The books are super duper good. I mean, the interesting thing about this game is the one reference that I heard made was that it's going to be very non-combat oriented, which makes sense for Gollum. I mean, if that's who it's focusing on, then, Gollum's not really a fighter.
No.
And so they referenced it almost to like Prince of Persia, where Gollum is this like agile, guy that's trying to traverse a map, so to speak. And so I don't know if you've ever played any of the Prince of Persia games, but they were a lot of fun back in the day. And that's really all I know.
Yeah, this one's a little funny because no one was asking for this, right? I don't think anyone ever said, oh, Lord of the Rings, you want to know who I want to play as? Yeah. Gollum. Because with Gollum, you're not fist fighting or using major weapons, and he doesn't cast any spells or anything. So it'll definitely be stealth based. I'm curious to see it. When you're drawing from Lord of the Rings, I feel like that always has to pique your interest a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no exact date yet for this game. It will come out in 2021. And they did say that it will use an intriguing dual personality mechanic. I don't really know what that means. It's very possible it just means that you have the option to do good or bad, and your character will look more and more human or more like Gollum. Because this game takes place, I guess, just shortly after he finds the ring. So he's still very much like Smeagol. So maybe it'll just be based almost like Fable, where how you act with the morality system will change, or maybe it'll have you use different sides of his personality in different missions. No one really knows, but they did say it'll have a skill tree, character progression. It will have persistent environments, which is kind of interesting. So being a one-player game, seeing how you affect the world and maybe returning back to places, that's all kind of interesting. So yeah, this one's a little bit odd, but I'm very much intrigued.
I am too. I mean, I need to see some gameplay footage, to be honest, because there's not really anything out there other than like the cinematic movie that just kind of intros the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I like stealth some. I get tired of doing stealth all the time. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where I need to see what the gameplay is. If they can give me some fun, like traversal, like some really good movement mechanics, almost to where it's like semi-platformer, but not really, because I get tired of platformers really easy. You know what I mean? Like, give me like a really good Prince of Persia, but with Lord of the Rings and Gollum and some stealth mechanics. And that, to me, sounds like it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like similarly to New World, this one's more likely to fail, but I'm still curious to see what they do, because you have a lot of great Lord of the Rings games, whether it's Shadow of War or Battle for Middle-earth or even the old games based on the movies. There's a long history there, so it's got potential. I'll just say that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. All right. We probably have time for maybe like one more each. I don't know if you maybe have some honorable mentions you want to go over as well.
Yeah, I mean, just so people don't think we're crazy, like, yes, I know Halo Infinite's coming out in 2021. Yes, I'm excited about that. I'm super excited about God of War Ragnarok. Like, yes, I mean, that game's going to be phenomenal. I'm kind of like, this sounds kind of goofy, but like Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait.
I mean, I don't want to sound like, an old man that's super pumped about Harry Potter, but like, I'm an old man that's kind of pumped about this game, man. Like,
oh, I have no problem admitting that.
Yeah. Cause like, this is by, the same people that did Bully, right? Isn't that who's doing Hogwarts Legacy? No, it's not Rockstar
No, it's
Games.
not Rockstar.
It's, who's the developer? It's,
according to Google, Avalanche Software in conjunction with Warner Brothers.
Maybe that's not who I'm thinking about then. But I've seen the footage for this game. I mean, give me a chance to be at Hogwarts. Give me a chance to have a good role-playing game. Give me a chance to learn magic and learn potions and learn, this and that. Let me find the invisibility cloak and, let me get a Nimbus, like save up my money and get a Nimbus, like that kind of stuff, man. Like there's so much potential there that if they can pull this off and they don't make it some crappy knockoff RPG-ish type game, it could be super fun, man. Like I'm kind of excited about it.
Dude, as I look through Avalanche Software, this is kind of a crazy developer. So they started off making Mortal Kombat games. So they did Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. But then you fast forward a couple years and they made Chicken Little for the GameCube. They made Chicken Little Live in Action, or Ace in Action. Apparently that's the sequel the next year. Meet the Robinsons, Bolt, Toy Story 3, and Cars 2. So basically they've just been making a bunch of kid games after starting with Mortal Kombat. So,
boy, that's a real
interesting.
They're like, hey guys, now that we've mastered the ripping out of people's spines, like, what we should do now? Let's make Disney games.
Pick a lane, Avalanche. Right?
Right?
My goodness.
Oh my.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, given those last few games, it's a lot of Disney. So I'm maybe a little bit more worried about that, but yes, I love Harry Potter. I love it so much. You get to pick your class and you get to choose to be a dark wizard or a light wizard. I'm
going dark wizard too.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
That one will be great.
All right. You got any others? Any honorable mentions or quick hitters?
Yeah, honorable mentions. I mean, some really big names. Hitman 3 is coming out in 2 weeks. And I love the Hitman games. I think they're hysterical. If you want to talk about my favorite stealth games, it's Hitman. I really love complex setups where you can like get rat poison, knock out a bartender, go to the bar, put the poison in the drink because you overheard someone talk about what drink he likes, and then you serve him the drink and then you leave and then they die. So it's neat how you can like attack it like a puzzle game. I think that's super fun. We also have Far Cry 6 coming out. The fact that it's got Giancarlo Esposito, who you might know as Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. Fantastic actor. I can't wait to see what he gets to do in a Far Cry game. We know how good the villains are in that series. And other than that, Mass Effect Legacy Edition, we've talked about that previously. I saw there was a game called Epic Chef, which got me super excited because it said in parentheses that it was farming and cooking.
Oh.
I was like, this is all about me. Like, I love Stardew Valley and
this is from ground to table, Paul.
No, the game could not look any worse. Like, I am so sorry to say it. I don't want to pick on them too much, but Epic Chef looks truly terrible. We still have Scavengers coming out later. We've played that one in beta. That one we felt pretty lukewarm on. So I'm a little curious to see where that one goes. And I think the only other one is Warhammer Darktide. I didn't want to talk about Darktide and Back 4 Blood because they're the same game, just one's modern zombies, the other one's fantasy
I feel
zombies.
like Darktide might be a little bit more up your alley than Vermintide was, though, because there's so much. It seems like the focus is much more on ranged combat versus melee combat.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but then it's like, how is it really any different than Back 4 Blood?
Right.
At that point, like, these are the same game by different developers. Like,
it's like, stagger these releases, guys. Like, why don't you pick
I know
different years at least? That way they can be spread out. It almost feels a little bit like Armageddon and Deep Impact coming out the same year, right? Like, they're going to kind of compete.
Armageddon was so much better. You know,
you have Space Madness.
One on your list, real quick, I know we got to wrap it up, is Rainbow Six Quarantine. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, so it's just another like 2 operators for Rainbow Six Siege, like Biggie, you know, no big deal. And then I was like, wait a minute. It's like totally a completely different game. Yeah. It's like what did they say? It's like a 3-man
3-person co-op. PvE.
Yeah. PvE.
It's all PvE.
On top of that.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see a little bit more on that one. We'll have to see what the like the footage and gameplay and stuff looks like, because we like Rainbow Six Siege a lot. We're just not competitive enough and gung-ho enough to put in the time to be good at that game.
Right.
But we think the game itself is great. So I'm very curious to see what a 3-player co-op PvE version of that could be.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when I think Rainbow Six, I'm generally thinking about the old Tom Clancy games where it's very slow-paced, stealth, that kind of mechanic. But this game, they have already shown it is fast-moving aliens that you're fighting against.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
This is a little bit of a different take in the Rainbow Six field, and we'll have to keep tabs on that one also. So it's funny that we have a couple of these 3-person squad PvE games coming out. Maybe this will be the new trend.
Yeah, it's a good trend. I like it. I'm all for co-op.
Yeah. Well, that's everything that we have here for you guys. So hopefully you learned a little bit about some upcoming games in 2021. I know we kind of tried to zag a little bit while everyone zigs and talks about the biggest games. We wanted to bring something a little bit new and different and a little bit more personal to you guys. So don't forget to leave a review for the podcast. If you want to check us out on social media, you can find us everywhere at Multiplayer Pod. And if you want to find us on Patreon, we are at multiplayersquad.com. And next week, we will be releasing for our full hour-long episode, we are going to be talking about Hearthstone.
Yes, such a good game. I love card games too, man. This is right up my alley.
We may have started this podcast 10 minutes late because I was in a Battlegrounds match and had to message Josh and said, I think I might win this one, so I'm not going to quit. And I did. I finished first, so I had to make you wait.
As any good gamer would say, I said, as long as you win, it's okay. But if you lose and you're late to recording, then we have a problem. But you, to your credit, you won, so all is well.
It was worth it. Yeah. Sorry to make you wait, but that kind of shows you a little bit about how much we have been enjoying this game. So, all right. Well, that's all that we have for you guys here today. We will be back on Thursday with an episode of This Week in Gaming. And until then, happy 2021.
Don't forget to leave a review. Thanks, everybody.